What should you do when an earthquake strikes?
What you gonna try and get out of the house?
I'd run.
Get outside the building ASAP.
All wrong answers, and what you don't know can kill you.
Do you know that more people die from running in an earthquake than from staying put?
Surprised? Sure, but what do you do? Just sit there in the middle of an earthquake?
Just remember 3 things that could save your life in an earthquake. Drop, cover, hold.
Drop. When you feel an earthquake, drop to the floor. It's actually the safest place in the building.
Cover. Get under a bed or sturdy table and cover your head. It's protection from falling debris.
Hold. Anchor yourself to a firm support.
Stay right where you are till help comes or until it's safe to come out.
Visit www.weready.org to know more about surviving earthquakes and much more.
Because what you don't know about earthquakes
Can kill.
Climate change demands that we act now. The emission of greenhouse gases into the atmosphere is already causing temperature increases, droughts and floods, rises in sea levels, and glacier melt. According to figures from 2011, Latin America and the Caribbean produce only 9% of the planet's contaminating emissions, but the region is particularly vulnerable to the effects, especially in Central America and the Caribbean. The greatest risks are posed to agricultural production, water availability, forest and biodiversity preservation, tourism in coastal areas, and population health and poverty. Preliminary estimates indicate that if the temperature rises by 2.5 degrees Celsius compared to the historical average, the economic costs of climate change could amount to between 1.5% and 5% of the region's current gross domestic product, GDP. On the other hand, the costs of taking the steps needed to avoid the effects of climate change are estimated to be below 0.5% of the regional GDP. These studies offer enough evidence for decision-making. It is urgent that we invest in sustainable infrastructure, in more and better public services and renewable energies, considering that such an investment is the bridge that connects our present with the future we want. Beyond these steps, only a global agreement based on the principle of common but differentiated responsibilities, along with a change in production and consumption patterns, will allow the region to confront climate change and move towards a new model of sustainable development with equality. Latin America and the Caribbean is still in time.
Hi, I'm RPB, 9-time Calypso Monarch of Barbados. The beach can be fun, but we have to be tsunami smart. Know the signs. You're at the beach, you feel a strong shaking, run. See the water withdraw an unusual distance from the shore, run. Hear a strange roar from the sea, run. If you experience any of these signs, just run to higher ground. Just run, just run, just run.
Be tsunami smart. Know the natural warning signs. It could save your life. There may not be enough time for an official tsunami warning.
They have forecasted that the coming years, the coming months, would be very dry. And this would, it's not good news for us, especially here in St. Kitts. We have been battling with drought-like conditions for the past 6 to 8 months.
Yeah, so in living memory, the worst drought in the Eastern Caribbean at least has been one in 2009, 2010, so only 5 years ago, 5, 6 years ago. However, it seems like this year maybe of the same intensity or even worse in terms of the coverage in the Caribbean. So we already see losses in agriculture, for instance, in Western Belize running into the millions of dollars. We see losses in productivity in Antigua and in St. Kitts. We see water being a challenge in Puerto Rico, where, for instance, San Juan would have had parts of the city which only got water every second day, parts only every third day. But that is not just in Puerto Rico, that's also the case, for instance, in Antigua, which in the month of September had homes that had access to water only once every 6th day.
The chief economic activity here would be agriculture and tourism. Drought would be a serious thing, impact for agriculture, of course. You won't be able to plant crops, and even if you plant them, then you're not looking at any good yields. And then tourism. Most of the ships that come to our shores, they expect to get some water from us to move on to the other ports. Because of the drought, we have had to restrict our ration water, and we've lessened the quantity that we give to the ships. Some of them have, threatened that if they don't get the quantity that they need, then they may not be making St. Kitts Nevis another stop on their itinerary. So the drought, yes, serious impact for us here in St. Kitts.
One particular problem for the people's awareness of drought is that as the second part of the wet season came in, we finally started seeing some rains, which happens even if we're in a year of drought. What does that do? Well, it alleviates the drought problem at the surface. So that means that the vegetation turns green. We start seeing the biological life happening again the way it usually does. And so people forget about the drought problem. But the point is, even if in those months we get normal rainfall, we still overall, for the whole wet season, we accumulated less rainfall than is required to refill our water reservoirs, to recharge our aquifers, etc. So that means that we get into the dry season already with too little water. And now comes the season in which all the tourists are coming, in which the agriculture requires more water for irrigation, in which there is more water requirements for bushfire fighting, and in which, in general, there's more evaporation, so the ground surface also dries out much faster.
lived in Cape Town, I'd be doing exactly this, standing in line to collect water in a jug like this. And I'm allowed up to 6 gallons for myself from this spring right here. But even though I'm visiting, I'm still expected to adhere to the water restrictions the city is enacting. In an interview with the deputy mayor, he told me they don't want to deter tourists because they need the business. They just want them to act like a local. But what does that really mean? I'm going to show you what it means to live on 50 liters or 13 gallons of water a day. When checking into my hotel, I was reminded by the staff that Cape Town is in the middle of an unprecedented drought and water shortage. So there's a sign hanging in the shower that says, "Did you know that a 2-minute shower uses approximately 30 liters of water a day?" Now, Cape Townians are restricted to using only 50 liters of water a day, which is about 13 gallons. And just for some context, estimates vary, but the average American uses 80 to 100 gallons of water a day. There's a really nice bathtub in the room, but don't even think about taking a bath during a water crisis like this. You're not allowed to. In fact, the hotel staff have removed the plug, so you can't even fill the tub. It would be a lot of water, of course. Estimates are about 36 gallons of water just to fill a full bathtub. Newer toilets can use about 1.5 gallons of water per flush, but older ones can use up to 4 gallons per flush. And there's one message here in Cape Town that they're constantly reinforcing, and that is, if it's yellow, let it mellow. So basically, the amount of water that Cape Townians are each being asked to use per day adds up to 2 hand washings, 2 teeth brushings, a 2-minute shower, 1 toilet flush, a half gallon of drinking water, and 1 cooked meal. To get a sense of how locals are changing their ways, I visited Anita and got a tour of the conservation system she's implemented in her home.
See, when we shower, we catch the water and then use the water to flush the toilets. We don't flush the toilet if it's yellow, but if it's brown, then we do flush the toilet. So 2 or 3 times a day, maybe this toilet gets flushed. And just do it by just pouring the water down the toilet like that. And what I even do is when we turn on the shower, you know, the first shower water is cold.
Yes.
And you're not standing under it, but it's perfectly good water. So I fill up this with the first shower water and I put it here, and we use that for brushing our teeth over here. And then as the water gets warm, we start showering, we catch that, and I've got buckets here for the toilet.
What's your showering schedule like now?
We sort of shower when we need grey water, so if we're running out of water to flush the toilet, we have a shower. But it works out to sort of once every 2 or 3 days, we'll have a proper shower. But very fast. When we were practicing, I got my husband to time me, and I showered in 45 seconds.
Wow.
It takes about a minute if I'm washing my hair as well. But you learn to start your shower. Yes.
Prior to the drought, how regularly were you showering?
Once or twice a day even, yes.
How has this changed your perspective on how we use water?
Well, I don't think we'll ever go back to our old ways. I think I'll always reuse my clothes now as much as possible because it's actually fine. I think it was just bad habits of washing things over and over. Also, I really don't think I've ever flushed my toilet again with beautiful drinking water. You can think for years we've been flushing our toilets with beautiful drinking water.
You're not the first person to tell me that.
So when you wash dishes, I use the spring water, or cooking, I use the spring water. I've bought this to help rinse dishes. It's a high pressure hose. You sort of give it a bit of, pump it a few times here, and you do that and you can rinse dishes.
Rather than using the tap?
Rather than using the tap. So for dinner, we've been eating like this. So eating our food on here, and then after dinner just throwing away the plate. And sometimes we just wipe the plate with a wet wipe.
Same goes for their hands.
So I've given every member of our family a little bag like this, and in the bag we've got a little mini bag of wet wipes, we've got some tissues, and we've got some waterless hand cleaner.
Anita is now also collecting rainwater. What level would you say it's at right now?
There.
It's here?
It's about half, yes.
And if it gets to this point?
At that point, municipal water will come in, yes.
Ideally, what level do you want it at?
Top all the time.
When was the last time it was this high?
Well, our neighbours have offered us borehole water. So what we do now is I've got a very long hose pipe from our neighbour's property, and we bring it across and in, and we fill it up. What I also do now is if rain is forecast, I suddenly start using more water because I want to make space in my tank. People talk about rain as if we're farmers now. And it's wonderful, this connection we have again with nature and the earth, which I think we lost in the city.
Everywhere I went in Cape Town, I was reminded to conserve. Even in popular tourist areas like the V&A waterfront. Here is this fixture in the middle of the waterfront that says, how will the water crisis affect you? You actually go inside and it's a bit interactive. Tell us what you're doing to save water, #WaterHeroes. Here it gives you an idea of how much water is used per activity. So laundry, use 14 liters, cooking, 3 liters of water right there, toilet flushing, 9 liters right next to it saying let it mellow. If it's yellow, number 1, and flush it with gray water, so not the clean water. So really everywhere you go in this city, you look up, you look down, there are reminders about day 0 and urging everyone to reduce their water usage. Public bathrooms don't even give you the option to waste water. All the fixtures of the sinks have been removed. There are signs that say that washing hands is prohibited. Another sign here pointing out that due to the drought and water crisis, showers and some taps have been disconnected. Instead, people are using hand sanitizer over there. Some artists have even created playlists to help you time your shorter showers. It's all part of a comprehensive effort to save water that I found myself taking part in, like a local. So if I was a resident and I ran out of my water, I'd be back here at this natural spring at the foot of the mountain to refill my jugs again. This is how Cape Townians are dealing with their water crisis and their severe drought, and it really makes you rethink how you use water and your relationship to it every single day. And who knows, my city could be next, and so could yours.
Plastic is wonderful because it's durable, and plastic is terrible because it is durable. Almost every piece of plastic ever made is still on the planet in some form or another. Plastic production globally this year is expected to be more than 300 million tonnes.
Half of which we'll use just once and then throw away. By 2050, when the population explodes to almost 10 billion people, it's expected that plastic production will triple. The problem with that is that today only a fraction of the plastic that we produce is recycled. The rest ends up in our environment, and it's coating our land and our oceans like a disease.
Garbage thrown away in the United States can make its way to Antarctica. Plastic in our coastal waters is pulled into the centre of massive wind-driven, churning circular gyres. There are many other ocean currents also diverting the trash all around the surface of the ocean. In reality, it's just one ocean with no boundaries. Lord Howe Island is a World Heritage Site and home to migratory seabirds like the shearwater.
Seabirds are incredibly helpful because they act like an army of scientists. They travel thousands of miles across the ocean. They pick up plastic off the surface of the ocean. They bring it back to their rookeries where they feed it to their chicks, and that provides an incredible amount of scientific data in terms of where the plastic comes from, its distribution, and how it breaks up on the ocean surface. Dr. Jennifer Lavers, she'd devoted her life to studying the plight of seabirds. Shearwaters are incredible birds. They migrate thousands of miles, stopping only here to breed.
Yeah, the stomach is very, very full, and if we look here, there's some very dark pieces, some very light white pieces, and if you see, you know, as I push on this, it's absolutely rigid, completely full of plastic all the way up.
Oh, look at that.
Absolutely no doubt that this bird died as a result of that plastic. That is literally a gut full of plastic. It's quite alarming, isn't it?
Oh, that's awful.
Range of plastic types and colours. We've got everything from the blues and the reds
His
to the
stomach's just filled with it. Big pieces too.
big
Like
sharp
heavy.
pieces.
Oh wow, look at the size of that big black piece.
That is an enormous piece of plastic.
Unbelievable. Look at the size of that. Jen, I counted 234 pieces of plastic out of that one bird. Is that a record?
Not even close, unfortunately. So for the species, the record is 276 pieces of plastic inside of one 90-day-old chick. And that plastic, when we weighed it out, accounted for 15% of that bird's body mass. So that's a pretty scary statistic. If we translate that into human terms, it gets even worse. That would be equivalent to you and I having somewhere around 6 or 8 kilos of plastic inside of your stomach. It's equivalent to about 12 pizzas worth of food inside of your stomach. Quite a bit of plastic for just one little bird. The parents were trying to do the right thing. There's a lot of squid beaks in here, and this purple colour is evidence of the squid ink. It's just a shame that every now and then they got it wrong, and got it wrong in a bad way. Really is quite an overwhelming thing. I do have some pretty rough days, have to go home and really wrap my mind around where do we go from here.
As a Pacific Islander, I know that the ocean is in deep trouble. The very authoritative prediction shows that by the year 2050, there'll be as much plastic as there is fish in the ocean by weight. Every country uses plastic. We need to start rationalizing that. We need to think about reuse of plastic, single-use plastic. It's got to be on its way out. And you know, plastic shopping bags are a good example of that. Your family does not need to use them. Take a cloth bag with you when you go shopping and put your shopping in there. There's an equivalent of a large garbage truck every minute of every day backing up to the ocean and just dumping plastic into it. we really have to look at ourselves and say, do we deserve this beautiful ocean that was given to us?
At the rate we're pumping greenhouse gases into the atmosphere, average temperatures will continue to rise through the century. That means some regions will have too much water, others will be left dry. Life will get harder for many, but especially for the poor. Take Central Asia. Glaciers will melt, leading to a risk of torrential floods. Over time, these fast-melting glaciers will shrink. Floods will be reduced to a trickle, from an overabundance to a shortage. In the Balkans, as it gets hotter and hotter, there will be more and more mosquitoes that spread diseases like dengue fever. Half a world away in the Andes of South America, glaciers are already melting fast, shrinking before our eyes. As supplies of safe drinking water decrease, there's more competition for what little is left. Cities will be especially hit hard. Without reliable sources of water, businesses and industries will falter. In the Middle East, it's another story. Rainfall is expected to decrease right as populations grow. An already dry region will get even drier. Key crops like cereals and beans will be harder to grow, meaning less locally produced food. But we can work to stop climate change and lessen its impact on water resources. First, we can reduce greenhouse gases to hold warming to below 2 degrees Celsius. We can reward economies that reduce carbon production, encourage alternative energies, and build more energy-efficient infrastructure. But we must also become more resilient to climate change and protect the poor who live in areas that will face flooding and water shortages, rising food prices, and disease. We can manage our water resources better. Good irrigation can reduce the amount of wasted water. Storage facilities protect water for use during dry spells. To prevent beach erosion and flooding, mangrove plantations can shore up fragile coastlines. New technologies can help better manage water resources. Governments can plan ahead, and people can be educated about water conservation. Working together globally, we have the power to counter the effects of climate change. But we must act now to have a safer, healthier world.
What should you do when an earthquake strikes?
What you gonna try and get out the house?
I'd run!
Get outside the building ASAP.
All wrong answers, and what you don't know can kill you.
Do you know that more people die from running in an earthquake than from staying put?
Surprised? Sure, but what do? Just sit there in the middle of an earthquake?
Just remember 3 things that could save your life in an earthquake. Drop, cover, hold.
Drop. When you feel an earthquake, drop to the floor. It's actually the safest place in the building.
Cover. Get under a bed or sturdy table and cover your head. It's protection from falling debris.
Hold. anchor yourself to a firm support.
Stay right where you are till help comes, or until it's safe to come out.
Visit www.beready.org to know more about surviving earthquakes and much more.
Because what you don't know about earthquakes
can kill